and now.
Okay, so people can be controlled if they are controllable, and people can control other people if they can be in control. Actually, this second point, and I should have mentioned this second point is a thing that never comes up, like when Skinner was talking about control of behavior. He said, people are controllable, and, and I can control them. Skinner was saying that. Well, how can you control them? You're a person too, so you must be controllable, right? But you're saying you can also be in control. So Skinner was saying that, implicitly saying that he could control, that other people were controllable, and that he could control them. But because he was saying he could control them, he was saying, I'm also in control. But he's a person too, so he's controllable. So that brings us, and that's the paradox that's illustrated by this cover art. How can a person be both controllable and in control, like this fellow here, who could be B.F. Skinner himself? He's saying, I can control other people. See, I can pull their strings, but he's also a person, so he must be controllable also. So how can that both happen? It can't, if you look at this, it's like a visual image that shifts back and forth, a visual illusion. Okay, so that's the paradox. That's the paradox of human nature that the book Controlling People deals with. That it's a paradox illustrated by this picture on the cover. So each figure on the cover art of the English edition is both controllable and in control. And okay, so it turns out that control theory, perceptual control theory, solves this paradox. It shows that we can, in fact, be both in control and controllable at the same time, which I will demonstrate using my audience here. Okay, so in order to understand control theory and this whole theory, the first thing we have to understand is something that is rarely dealt with in psychology in general. Or, well, I won't say that right now. I'll just say what we have to first understand is what does it mean to control or to be controllable? What does it mean? What's control? I mean, when you hear the word, a lot of people think, oh, dictatorship and all that, which is true. Dictators control. But, as I say in the book, control also means, a pitcher who can keep it in the zone, and, a pitcher with good control. Control, as a word, has bad connotations often, but it also has good connotations. People like to be in control of their lives, of their relationships. We'll see. Okay, so what is control? It turns out that control is this is the formal definition. It's a process of producing pre-selected results in a disturbance-prone world. And what that fancy definition really says is that control is what we typically think of as purposeful behavior. Control is just people achieving what they want, but also they achieve we achieve what we want in a world that doesn't always make that easy. We are making things that we want to have happen, despite the fact that the world is often providing roadblocks in the way of that happening. Sometimes those roadblocks are not that obvious. So we are controlling whenever we are producing or trying to produce certain results, like lifting a book or moving a chair or whatever, or having a date or whatever you do. You are controlling whenever you are producing an intended result on purpose in a world that doesn't make that easy. And doing it in this, that's what that last thing means, in the context of changing circumstances, disturbances. Okay, so here's a little illustration of what control is. First of all, there are 4 components to the process of controlling that are observable in behavior. So what I'm going to talk about now is trying to teach you, and you won't learn this right away, but how to teach you to look at behavior as a process of control. And these are the 4 components of control. What's called a controlled variable, and I'm now going to use some symbolism, but don't get too blown away. We'll keep it down. This is the only ones we'll use. A controlled variable, which is called QI, the reference state for that variable, disturbances, and the outputs that keep the variable in its reference. Let me describe that in terms of a behavior that you probably did, or are doing right now, lifting a cup to your mouth to drink a drink of tea, like she's doing. Okay, so here is a behavior, drinking a cup of tea. That behavior turns out to be a control process. The controlled variable is the position of the cup. The controlled variable just means some variable in the world that can vary. The position of the cup is something that can vary, right? The reference state of that variable where am I? I guess we have to stop it again. Sorry.